Hey dudes, welcome back to another episode of our Rhomas Men's Team podcast. You are about to listen to one of our prior team meetings. If you ever want to join one of our live sessions that we have every Monday and Friday, head over to rhomas.com. That's RHOMAS.com and put your email in and we will send you a live link every time we record. We generally record on Mondays and Fridays. So if you ever want to be on the actual podcast, like we bring men up all the time to talk about their goals, talk about their obstacles, etc., head over to rhomas.com. And then also, if you want to help support the channel grow and also have access to exclusive content, book reviews, extra whiteboard sessions, etc., and some coaching sessions, head over to patreon.com and support us. We would love it. But if not, no biggie. We'll see you on the live sessions. Later, dudes. Enjoy this podcast.
We're live. We're live
on the podcast.
All right, I'll send it to you afterwards. Sorry, we're just talking turkey. Never mind us, dude.
Just business stuff.
Just fucking biz, baby. How you doing, man?
Good, bro. How are you?
Feel good, man. I feeling a little spent from the weekend. Because I had like my, let's call it my house stuff, like the writing stuff I do, everything I do with the podcast, and then I've added the stand up to that, so. I've been burning the candle at both ends a little bit, but I've definitely been getting decent sleep. It's not been too bad, but I definitely bit off a little more of the apple than I usually do this week. And then next week I'll be in Texas. So I'm a nice little push and then I'll have a little recovery time after that. So,
oof. Well, what is your schedule looking like?
What was it looking like
when
before?
you're doing this? Like, walk me through what the schedule looks like.
Okay, so the schedule is around 7:30. My dogs/child wake me up. One of them, first. What up, Austin? What up, Sam? One of them wake me up. So whether it's I usually take first shift. So I take the baby, I get the dogs all situated. Monday's trash day. Take the trash all out. I do like the early morning stuff so that my wife can sleep in because she usually gets up one or two times a night to breastfeed. So I give her an extra hour and a half of sleep. So I'm up at 7:30, 8 o'clock, typically no matter what. So then I would, hold the baby till about 9:30, 10, depending on how tired Brittany is. And 10 o'clock's the absolute cutoff time, but, not to sound cruel, but, you got to kind of start somewhere. So
tyrant.
So then I would go downstairs and just, I do my little daily habit scorecard right here. And I would just start I meditate, journal, writing, a bunch of other stuff, and then, exercise. So my day's pretty much filled from 9 or 10 a.m. until about 12 with a writing kind of meditation thing that I'm doing. And then after that's done, I take the baby for a little bit. And then after a couple of hours, I go do all my exercising stuff.
Okay.
And then I return in the evening, do a couple little administrative stuff. And then typically my nighttime was me and Brittany would relax for an hour and watch a movie or something.
Okay. And then, but now your weekly schedule is a bit different because of the stand-up comedy?
Yeah, because now there's the nighttime relaxation's not there as much. And then the weekends are just usually we really do the family time thing on the weekend so that I can get my, undisturbed space to do my work.
Right.
But she's cool. Again, this is just something we talked about it, as long as there's all right, these are just 2 weeks. This isn't the new norm. I'm going to, bust a couple moves, pay off that credit card bill after Amazon Day. She hit it pretty hard. I didn't. She did. I actually, I got my pull-up bar, my punching bag and stuff. So I racked up the card a little as well.
Nice little discount.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. But, and also because of, it's a write-off because I'm because of Rhomas, it's a write-off. Fitness stuff is a write-off. Oh, yeah.
That's right, man.
So really the thing I'm losing is a little bit is kind of the family time, some of the relaxation time, and just the kind of strain of traveling and stuff. So,
and then what's coming up next? You said Texas.
Texas, yeah, I'll be down in Fort Worth and I think Dallas.
And then how many shows do you do when you're at a session?
I think it's just 2 a night, I believe. Could just be one night, but I think it's 2 a night. You do 2 shows in the night, and then you go to the other place, 2 shows, and you're out.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
like a movie star.
Nah, dude,
just interview rounds.
Humble servant, dude. Just a humble servant. Which again, dude, that's helped me tremendous. I hated stand up, and that was something. This is actually kind of, I think, worth mentioning. So I'm doing stand up all weekend, and I was genuinely having fun because I've just gotten out of the is this good? Am I awesome at this? It's I just go out and just, now it's just I just want people to have fun. Don't care. people will yell out and heckle, and it's just like, before that would like bother me. I'm like, this is my time. And just like, hey, what's going on? You know, just mess with whoever's doing it. And if they get like excessive, obviously it's like, dude, you just have to leave. Like, this is just not working. So it's just been easy, man. It's been easy. I found myself having some fun. But there was also a moment, like, I think the last night I was in the bathroom and I'm taking a pee, and it was like, I had this, do you ever do something you're doing and you're like, should I be doing this? Like, is this the thing I should be doing?
Of course.
Like I started doing that, and the feeling I got, and again, I try not to like, I try to take notice of feelings, but not also let them completely dictate like what I'm up to. But the feeling was something of like, I felt like I was out of bounds in a weird way, where it's like, do you ever play, there's these games like Fortnite, and I think Call of Duty has it, where like you play on this map that like kind of shrinks around you. And when you go off the map, it's just like this cloud of toxic gas.
Okay.
Like, they tell you like you're out of bounds. And I was thinking, I'm like, that's an interesting way to kind of conceptualize just being in a state of being and doing that just doesn't align with what you 100% want to be up to. I'm not saying like I was like, dramatically like I have to go, but it's just something that I try to pay attention to, because I do feel like pulled in a lot of different directions. So.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was listening to something over the weekend that talked about looking at what you do as generosity, and that was a very interesting take on a career, because obviously we don't look at it as that because we get paid for it. But man, I definitely think there's something to that, like being generous with your craft and your skill, even if you're getting paid for it. Are you trying your best to help out the people on the opposite end of that transaction as much as possible, and even to the point where you look at it as generous? And I think that's what you do with your comedy. It seems like that's the perspective that you're taking as well. Like, I'm going to try to give value. I'm going to try to serve these people. Yeah,
it just makes it more fun. And like, if you're just there trying to like, I guess like prove some story of yourself that you have in your head, like, I am this good at comedy. And then like every single set, you're like, oh, I didn't do that good, so I must not be. It's like, just try to have fun, make sure people have fun doing it. It's like, it just, yeah, exactly. It just kind of makes everything easier when you just get out of your own way and get out of your own face, dude, of just kind of like, trying to prove, like, you make up a story of who you are, and then you try to keep proving that. But in reality, it's like, you're just out in the world and there's just a million variables, a million different things going on. So it's like, it's good to let that guide you, obviously, but getting too rigid around that is something I've done, especially around yourself, can get pretty tough.
Oh yeah, no, it makes complete sense. And this is where there's a cross pollination with, are you viewing your career as giving service and being generous to people on the other end, and then also combining that with the War of Art book, the Stephen Pressfield book, which if you guys haven't read that, it's absolutely amazing. But the general premise is talking about, quote, creatives. Who's the top guy he used in that? Who's the writer? Stephen King. Said Stephen King, most people, Stephen King has all these awards, and he's obviously done a brilliant set of work. But he said his big secret was just showing up every single day and writing. Yeah. And whatever your craft is, regardless of these short-term results, are you actually being a professional rather than an amateur? What differentiates a professional versus an amateur is showing up to do the work every day.
Yeah, dude. I can't tell you how many like years I spent being like, I think I'm a writer. I'll wait till I come up with enough cool ideas, and then and it's just like, literally you sit down and write, and you're like, oh, I kind of suck at this. All right. And then you just slowly get better. So and I think Stephen King's like, his whole system is like, he just writes 2,000 words a day, no matter what. Like 2,000 words a day. I think Kurt Vonnegut would write like 1,000 words a day. So he wrote a little less. I think it's like 2,000 words is about like 4 or 5 pages. So if you do that every single day, it adds up to like, after like 9 months, you have 200,000 words. And like, like, that's why I like your idea of doing things in iterations. It's like, just get the first iteration out of the way, dude. Don't worry about it too much.
Oh, dude. Well, and as much as it kills me to say this, I just heard it again this weekend. Like, I kind of hate even saying it out loud, but I just find it to be true again and again and again. And that is, for certain things, especially projects, shoot for 80%. And I heard it was like something like, 80% is good enough and 100% is still thinking about it. And I think if you can get your projects to 80%, that is when you ship it, if that makes sense. So like, I always shoot for that. It's like, let me get it to 80. But then the little trick that I pull is, if I'm at 80 and I'm still under the deadline, then I have room to try to increase it to 100, if that makes sense. But if I'm at 80 and the deadline hits, the thing is gone. Right.
So what do you mean when you say ship it? Yeah. What do you mean ship it?
Ship it just meaning, it's now submitted to whoever. Right. So let's say for
gotcha.
you, let's say if it's a book or if it's an article or if it's whatever, if it's a joke that you're working on and you're not sure if it's ready. If it's at 80 and you have a show tonight, then you do the joke. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
I think anything under 80 is probably not good enough to ship. Like you should probably still work on it and like take the slap on the wrist by not hitting your deadline. But I think if the deadline is there and you're at 80, push it out. Because one of the best ways I've heard it described is usually the gap between 80 and 100 is super subjective. Right. So you might think that my 80 is 90 or 100, but as the creator, right, because your standards are so high, your 80 is going to be constantly moving, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It becomes super subjective. And the funny thing is, man, I found it's the 80-20 rule. You can get done that 80 in 20% of the time that it otherwise would have taken you to get 100, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Dude.
And I have really managed my projects that way. Like I do it here in the office all the time. I can get to 80 out of the gate so quick, like almost like, let's say for a lot of our projects, like almost like same day. Versus for that difference between 80 to 100, it can sometimes take me weeks. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. And it's also too, it's like, 80% of people won't put out anything really. So it's like, in terms of like, here's come up with some sort of, dude, again, just going back to when I was in school, it was like, dude, people wouldn't even raise their hands to like venture to take a guess at an answer.
Right.
But it's like when you now you're talking about physically producing a document and being like submitting it, dude, a lot of people just won't do that. They're like, I just totally refuse. Or, document, be the person who's in charge of building the deck. That always terrified me, dude. And I would do construction jobs and they were like, all right, you're in charge. And I'd be like, whoa. Then it's up to me whether or not like a thing is straight. I'm like, everything looks straight. I can't tell. Everything looks crooked and straight. I don't know. So it's like, yeah, man, I remember doing that of just being like, of trying to like, again, there's different like levels of domains, things you're comfortable with. And it's like, yeah, I can fully write a thing and submit it. And there's other people like, my wife is like, just the idea of writing a thing and submitting it is she's just like, she hates it. And, and it's funny. She actually, in terms of like leveling something, she loves that. And it's like in my head, there's always like, is it really level though? Like, can we tell? Do we know? And, it's like, ugh, I hate that.
Well, I think there's a couple things. Number one, in one of the last books that I read, and I forget exactly what book it was. If I remember, I'll tell you guys. But they did a study where they took, I think it was a photography course, and they took half of the class, and the professor said, you will receive a grade, right? Take however many pictures you want, but you have to submit a final picture at the end of the semester, and we're going to grade you. So you pick your best one. In other words, they took the other half of the class, and he said, I just want you to take as many pictures as possible, right? Yeah. And you will get graded off of volume, right? So sort of quantity versus the opposite of the other class was just quality. Mm-hmm. And then they took all those pictures, and then they put them out into some sort of museum or whatever it was, and they had people rate the pictures, right? They had them pick their favorite pictures. Every single one that the audience picked was from the volume group, not from my single best photo group. That's pretty interesting.
That's crazy, man.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. Especially like, again, with like, I'm sure it applies to anything, but writing, like, dude, if you try to make something too good, it almost just becomes annoying. I did that when I wrote my first book. I try to prove like, oh, this is going to be like such a good sentence. This is going to be, and it just comes off as like wordy and kind of like dickish. Whereas you just think about like, what's the most fun thing to read? Let me just write that rather than being like trying to put my little beret on and be like, isn't that great? Aren't I the best? Yeah. It's like, it's nice to get out of that mode, but that's fucking fascinating, man.
Well, and when you write, do you pick a single person to write to, or do you try to write to an audience?
It kind of depends, honestly. It depends when I'm writing. Like this morning when I was doing my journaling, I just kind of will just write to, I guess it's an imagined audience. When I'm writing like a book, like a fiction thing, it's really, I'm just trying to like imagine what's going on. So I'm not really thinking about anyone in particular. But when I write like, more things that I would call articles that I don't really have anywhere to release. I kind of think of myself and just think of like I'm talking to another person, but I don't really like distinctly imagine them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because I have found that for me, I try to write to 1 to 4 people. And when I am writing, I try to put their pictures up above my computer. So it reminds me, okay, I'm just having a conversation with Anthony or with Matt or with
Mhm.
whoever. And that for some reason helps me refine my thinking, because I feel that if I make this scope too large, if I try
Mhm.
to talk to too large of an audience, I try to serve too many masters, and it gets me off, and it's like, oh well, maybe I'm not making this person happy, and then it just really makes my writing shit and makes me water it down.
Yeah, that's how it's funny because that's how I do that to myself sometimes. I think from not having that, because I'll get into these really confusing sentences that try to encompass everything at once when it's like, this usually is the case. Unless this is the thing, then, that's the thing that happens.
Exactly.
And
Too
yeah,
many
dude,
disclaimers.
it gets too convoluted, especially when you read like what's that one book? It's maybe like the Way of the Tao. I forget what it's called, but it's just like the Tao is now, it's very simple, plain language. And, people could be like, no, it's not, it just doesn't, it's just very simple, concise and clear. And it's actually funny too. So when I was I told you before we started, when I was doing my journaling this morning, it's like, I always start off, I don't know why I have a fascination with whatever my dreams are about. So I always start off by just writing those down, because I feel like there's always like
Hmm.
just cool ideas embedded in them. Um, if I remember them, I write them down, and then I launch into like whatever I'm thinking about. So I was telling you, I've been messing around with like rearranging my habits, my daily habits. And I tried to do like a sort of like a Russian doll, those like Russian nesting dolls that like pop out of
Oh
other
yeah,
ones.
yeah.
My habits were just kind of there, like willy nilly. So I try to put some form into like, like what would be the best one to do first? What would be the best one to do after that first one? Like how would that, so I rearrange them to where I meditate, then journal, and then read just a little bit. It could be a couple pages, and then I write, and then the second half of my day is more of like a physical, like exercise. Make sure I eat my vegetables. Little act of love for the wife or whoever, and then my
Yep.
sleep. So it's like if I do those things, but dude, it's actually been working pretty well. And the thing that I was journaling about was this idea of like, like peace and mindfulness, because I've been researching it a lot and thinking about it. And, a lot of times it stands alone as like, mindfulness, and I'm going to reach this transcendental state. And like, that's all I'm doing. And I've been really thinking about it, I think because of the ACT stuff, as like using mindfulness in like a purely functional way, where it's like, it's like, forget about the, down the road of like, oh man, I'm like, I do it when I meditate. I'm like, oh God, I reach this state. Oh, this is awesome. Oh man. Then it goes away. And I'm like, damn it. So what I've been thinking is like, try to do it for like, try to meditate for like a minute and try to just forget like, reaching like nirvana, enlightenment, all that stuff, or even just being good at meditating. Try to see if you can just close your eyes and simply accept your circumstances, not in like like a I give up kind of way, to just be like, all right, let me just like cool my jets and be like, take like a realistic inventory of where I'm at, and just be like, that's okay. That's cool. Like I'm on my own side. I'm not against myself. I'm not whipping myself too hard. I can take a minute, pause, and be like, this is truly where I'm at, and that is okay. And then from there, be like, all right, and what is all this friction I'm feeling? Because typically a lot of people feel this like stuff all day of like, it's not right. It's not right. Then like kind of from that calmer, more accepted place, then examine your friction of like, like what do I feel like I'm missing? Do I even know, or am I just out here just like, kind of spazzing out? And then that way it's like you can start to cultivate like a functional calm rather than like reaching for this like ultimate transcendental state. It's like, no, reach like a minute of functional calm and then start acting out of that. And then once you start actually like, doing things and like rearranging things in your life for real rather than just in your head, a lot of the other stuff starts to follow up. And then it's like, it's just like a accept, come to terms with, kind of analyze a little bit, and then just try to act out of that place rather than kind of just like in this like half spazzed out, half kind of like, I don't want to think about that state, and just, like, and constantly like, I don't want to keep rambling. But that was the thing I was thinking about this morning and trying to like manualize something like that.
Yeah, a lot of the guys are commenting, and good morning to everybody. I saw Deadeye Davey, Ali, ASB, Delco, Jim, all you guys, Jim, Austin, etc. Good morning, everyone. A lot of great comments in the section. So I was looking into recently, how do I say this? Like when I was looking into meditation, I've been reading about meditation and doing meditation for years. And I always try to like really refine my understanding of it. And I start looking into fighters and meditation. So if you look at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and the Gracie family, etc., it implies a certain amount of action and therefore hormonal response. So whether it be using adrenaline and everything, et cetera. Is meditation more about being able to appropriately calibrate your hormonal response to something, or is it about having a non-hormonal response? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. It all depends on the context. So it all depends on what you're up to. Because, right away, people will be like, well, what do you, if you see a bear, you're just going to like be like, oh, whatever.
Right. Exactly. Because you need adrenaline to kick in, because otherwise the bear is going to win that.
Sure. Absolutely. No, absolutely. And, even your adrenaline against the bear is,
well, just so you can run.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Run, take off. I totally understand what you're saying. Or like jump in a cold lake.
Yourself, bro.
Jump in a cold lake, you wouldn't have otherwise or something, but actually it probably will get you there. Yeah, I mean, again, it's all of these things, these decisions are always like and this is what jams me up when I try to apply universals to them. None of these things work unless you are discussing a thing within a specific context. So it's like, the bear, obviously, like you're running, you're doing this, grin it down like Davy Crockett, whatever you got to do. But it's like in terms of like, and this is the stuff I talked about a lot on Psych. No, it's like there's external problems and there's internal problems, and there are two different contexts and there are two different whole sets of dealing with and stuff. So like, a bear is one set of skills that, you'd want to learn from someone other than a meditator, I would say. Because that's just going to transcend any sort of meditation, unless you're just fully ready to die. And, okay, fine. I'm not trying to get eaten by a bear, but so yeah, I think it all depends on the context and situation. And when people do these like large, like this is the deal, it's like, instantly your head, you can just sit there and scan and be like, what about this? And they're like, all right, well, forget about that one. So it all depends on like, just the ability to center yourself can help in any context, in my opinion, if you can calm yourself. But again, the threat of like a life and death thing can, again, with the hormones and everything, can send you into oblivion. But say like in a relationship, your partner's causing your hormones, your blood to boil, stuff to fucking fly all over the place. That's something where mindfulness can really, where you can cut that off, or at least reduce it, let's say. That's where I think it comes in big time.
Yeah, because my hypothesis is that it is about calibration, about being able to efficiently and optimally utilize the resources of your body and mind and hormonal system. Because, for instance, I'm just guessing. I know very little about this stuff. I've probably read, 3 or 4 books and been practicing for a while. But I'm going to imagine it's a lifelong journey. But when I listen to, what is his name? It's one of the Gracie guys. Do you know the single best jiu-jitsu artist?
It's like Royce Gracie, one of them. I forget his name. It's like Hickson, Royce. Just the Gracie.
I think it's Hickson. Yeah, exactly. ASB says Hickson. So Royce was the one who became more famous because when UFC started, but he was, funny enough, he was the smaller guy that the Gracie family put out in the UFC just to show that they could use one of their suboptimal fighters because it was the structure and the skill set, not the individual. So Hickson Gracie, I believe, is like the Michael Jordan of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And yeah, ASB and Chuck, thanks for backing that up. And I listened to an interview of him recently, and he was talking about his fighting strategy because one of the reasons that he attracted so much attention. Have you ever seen the documentary Choked by any chance?
Mm-mm.
Dude,
I'll check it out.
Next man movie, bro. You should definitely 100%
check it out.
So one of the reasons he attracted a lot of attention is not only because of his winning record, but the other reason he attracted so much attention was because of the way he did it. So apparently he would basically sleep. He was oftentimes found sleeping before matches. He was like that sort of zenned out and calm. And then when he would go in, he would execute. But then when it took me years, I finally listened to another interview with him. And he said, here's my strategy. I do my meditation, breathing techniques, and I get very, very calm. And I'm so well practiced that then I just go and execute on the thing. But when he's in, let's say, the ring or the octagon or whatever, I guess he never fought in the octagon, but you get the point.
Mm-hmm.
He measured it in terms of heartbeats. He's like, or heart rate. He's like, I know that through my meditative practice and my breathing practices at, end of first round, I will be at, XY or A level heart rate versus my competitor is going to be 20% above me. And I know that in the second round, it's going to be even more of a distance. The third round is going to be even more of a distance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So to me, that's somewhat of an indicator, at least his explanation is that meditation helps with calibrating your physiological response to something, so you're not overreacting to it, if that makes sense. At least that's how I interpret it. And for me, that was pretty profound. If that's the case, and I'm going to run with it even if it's not, because it does help me, I think that is that's one of the main benefits of meditation, is helping you to calibrate your physiology to the reality and to the goal that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, dude, the exact. So, if you're sleeping, so say you take a guy like that and he's sleeping before a match, the thing that helps him do that, in my opinion, is the fact that he is fully present in the thing that he currently is in. So, he's sleeping before a match. It's like, oh my God, you have a match. How are you sleeping? But this is what meditation helps, is like, be present in the place you're in. So really, he's just a dude in a room, and if he starts freaking out about that, it's because he's thinking about fighting. Right. So it's like he's imagining the fight. It's like, yeah, how are you not going to do that? But yeah, that seems to be like a gold star of like, he's just like, I'm just a dude in the room. I'm going to relax him, because there's nothing I can do about the fight from here besides just relax myself. And with fighting, that is like a really big thing with jiu-jitsu. A lot. It's like they always make fun of white belts because you come in and you're just like, and you're trying to be strong because you don't know any technique. And these guys, there's times where they're like, they put their hand on their head and they'll just mess with you. And it's pretty funny to watch. But yeah, that seems, like I said, that seems to be one of the benefits to meditation, of just being like, is the thing I'm freaking out about imagined, or is it actually here? And if not, what is actually here? Oh, I'm a person sitting in a chair. Like, that's all I'm doing right now.
Yeah. And I wonder, like, for me, because I'm super analytical and neurotic, I wonder if for me, I see life as more about ratios, because I think sometimes when people say like, oh, hey, the match is not happening right now. Right. But then almost, Matt, to your point, what you said was, but yeah, like obviously you're going to be thinking about it at least somewhat, right? Like it's if you had a completely blank slate, then every frame of life, you'd wake up and be like, well, why am I here right now? I was not thinking at all about that I was going to be here, and now I'm here.
Sure.
Right? It's so I wonder if maybe for people like me, it's easier for us to process when we think in terms of ratios, because in my like crazy mind, very few things in life are 100%. Sure. And I think life is lived in those percentages. So I wonder if it's more a matter of there's a certain level of critical mass, or there's a certain ceiling that's healthy, and there's a certain ceiling that's not. So for instance, anticipating the future is, I believe, a function of the prefrontal cortex, and is very much a gift that's been given to human beings, right? So it's that anticipation that allows us to calculate the odds of the bear being around the corner. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Versus saying, well, I'm here right now, there's no bear, therefore there's no probability of the bear being until it's here, right? And until it's either 0% or it's 100%. Well, when the bear is there and it's 100%, that's going to be a very difficult situation to handle. Yeah. Versus if I could anticipate the bear being around the corner, then I just won't go around that corner. But if I am anticipating it so much so to where it's skewing reality, every unit percent that it's skewing, like that it's above that actual real probability of happening, I'd be curious if that causes stress. Yeah. If that makes sense.
That's literally, you're describing experiential avoidance. So that's what experiential avoidance is. When you start to alter your life in like a dysfunctional way based on the possibility of things happening that become further and further and further separated from like actual reality.
So if the probability of a bear being around the corner is 20%, but I'm convincing my brain to calculate it as 80, that delta between 20 and 80, so that's 60 point spread is unnecessary stress. And that's what you're defining as, what is it called?
Like they call it experiential avoidance. When you start to like I said, it's like the problem is like, we're built for bears, cheetahs, and all that stuff. That's where our mind developed. But then it's like, just take like, forget like an animal, just go to like the idea of going to a party. Now people are like, oh, I'm going to be embarrassed. I'm going to make an idiot of myself. No one's going to like me there, blah, 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 blah. And then you start to kind of go like, again, you're forecasting this future that hasn't exactly happened. Maybe it happened in the past once, but again, it's your that's your judgment of it. And then like, you just stay home. You're like, I'm not going to go, same way you'd avoid a bear, which, again, avoiding a bear just sounds so logical and so good. And it's like, you should always avoid them. It's like, and it's also one of those things like,
Fair enough.
None of this stuff is literally true. It's only functionally true. So like if it's serving you, awesome. But it's like when it starts to kind of like limit your life in a way that's just way too much. Like, you're a hunter gatherer, you're like, I saw a bear there once, but then you get hungry and you're like, shit, I got to go back there. There might be a bear. So it's like, it's these things, like you said, yeah, dude, the idea that, meditation is going to kind of like obliterate or like totally, that's what I was talking about, totally transcend our more like animal nature. I just don't believe it. I don't believe that. I think it can just give us a kind of reprieve from this like hyper awareness we've kind of evolved into. And now there's so many things to think about and be potentially disturbed by that you kind of need to like tweak this awesome gift we've gotten through evolution with just like a more mindful approach that we can kind of, like you were saying, take constant stock of like, how realistic is this? How, blah, 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 blah. How is it serving me? And again, that can only, in my opinion, be done while you are somewhat present. Because if you're not like, and when I say present, I mean like thinking about where you actually are, like, experiencing your surroundings rather than strictly being like, dude, last night I laid in bed and just imagined what would happen if someone's been shooting people with paintball guns around my neighborhood. So I was like, it's hilarious. So I had this whole like 30-minute thing. I'm in my bed. Like, if you had a paintball gun, I could probably take it out. I would shoot them with it. And then it just like got into the scenario where like someone has a real gun and they shoot me and it like just grazes my face, but I take it. I'm like, do I shoot? Point of the story is, dude, I couldn't fall asleep for like an hour. I was so amped up by just thinking about like, and I do this all the time to myself. I think about like taking guns, like they do it in the like YouTube videos where like you like take it from a person.
Just watched The Equalizer last night and Denzel did that exact same thing.
Yeah, dude. So it's like, again, in my head, it's like I'm not being present. I'm sitting there, I'm lost in this scenario, this daydream, and at a certain point, I'm like, dude, you're hyping yourself up. Stop thinking about this. But in my head, I'm like, it feels so good imagining myself disarming people and just like shooting people in self-defense. So it's like, it's not working for me. I need, if I just like, hey, dude, you're in bed, you're going to sleep, like go to sleep, stop it, knock it off, So it's like the way, nighttime, I don't really do this, but the way I stay present is I have this app on my phone. That was my set list from the podcast last night, but I have an app on my phone that, it just rings a bell every hour, every 45 minutes. My phone just goes bing. And then when that bell goes off, I go, what am I up to right now? I check in with myself. Did I just do something stupid? Am I trying to not accept the fact that I did something stupid? Or like, maybe I was kind of a dick to my wife. Maybe I was this, or like, I'm feeling pretty good. Actually, hey, I'm doing a thing that I highly value. Or is this bell ringing while I'm doing something that I didn't really want to do, but I got kind of forced into? I have just little reminders like you talk about having like your, external, I forget, what did you call it? It's when I always use the word decorating, but you have like external things you put in your environment that kind of give you cues to like things you should be doing. I have this, someone gave me this. They were like, oh, it's some Italian lady. It's my wife's friend was like, it wards off spirits. But same thing. Every time I see this, I check in just like the bell. I go, hey, what am I up to right now? Am I doing this? Am I doing my weird stuff where I'm kind of being squirrely and not paying attention to what's going on? Am I lost in my head? I try to set up as many of those cues as I can around myself, but the bell is the best one, man. On your phone, it just goes bing, and you go.
Yeah, I got to do that.
It's called. I think it's
Jim Caruso is saying I've been meaning to do it. I've also been meaning to do it as well,
dude. It's called the Mindfulness Bell app. I think it's pretty simple, but yeah, dude, it just
Bell app. Do you turn off the rest of the notifications on your phone?
What do you mean with like that?
Well, because my phone, I've turned off basically all of my notifications except for my calendar for my meetings, but I turn off every single notification. But now you have a notification for the mindfulness bell. Do you have other notifications or no?
Just my text. When I get a text, like it'll go like, like or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I turned off for every app. Yeah, I turned all those off. That was just like, you can't do anything, man. If you don't go in and like fully strip your phone down, then I'm talking like, in my opinion, and it sounds drastic, but it's like, and this is just what worked for me. Because I'm kind of compulsive. Social media, all of it's off my phone. It has to be. And if I have to use it, I'll pop it up, then delete it right away. Because it's like I will start to become obsessive and go on it, and it's just like so quickly just starts to hijack my day. So yeah,
I give you credit for being able to have your text message. I turned my text message notifications off years ago because it was like it's just crazy, hundreds of times, not hundreds, but
enough.
Very often throughout the day. It's just insane.
Yeah, I keep my text
like very much, but
I keep my texts on, but I also, if I'm in like a work block, I put my phone in do not disturb. So it's like the only one who can text me is, my wife. But yeah, no, she would spaz if I was like, dude, I just don't know, and you text me. But kudos.
Can you set your notifications? Can you have that? Like, I'm only going to allow Brittany's text message.
That's really? If you add someone to your favorites and then put it on do not disturb, only your favorites can get through to you.
Oh, really?
And then you tell those favorites, you say, look, I'm doing a work block. What do you need from me? 2 hours I need. No, unless the house is on fire, which I'll smell, so don't even text me. Leave me be. But yeah, that's
I'm gonna have a competition of my friends to see who gets into the favorites. I'm gonna make it publicly known.
But yeah, man.
Cool, man.
But yeah,
does anybody? Oh, sorry, go ahead, bud.
No, that was the thing that was kind of burning on my mind of like, because I get so hung up on mindfulness. You see dudes like I sat in a cave for 40 days. There's like an endless array of just kind of like cool, mystical one-upmanship. And then in my head, I've been really getting this idea of just functionality. It's like, dude, forgetting all of that because, none of us can sit in a cave or do whatever for a month, at least from what I think. It's like, can you just, can you try to somehow cultivate a different mental state on demand? You don't need a substance. You don't need this. Can you cultivate just a slightly different mental state to act out of, and then start to kind of just be a little bit more aware and, start to kind of consciously craft your behaviors rather than like knee-jerk reactions all the time that you constantly regret. That's been kind of the work of the last year or so for me.
Dude, I think it's because you're getting some of this stuff from that new book you're reading, right? About ACT therapy.
It's a lot, dude. Yeah, a lot of it comes from a liberated mind, which I have right here. Yeah, a lot of it is coming from doing. Oh, sorry. This book's fantastic. So a lot of it's coming from that. A lot of it's coming from the. I would say, 100%. Most of it's coming from that. The mindfulness book that I'm reading, and the one I read, Untethered Soul. But yeah, so sorry. That's I'm doing a couple books right now, but yeah, primarily the ACT. The cool thing about ACT is that they take all this meditation, all this stuff, and they really do like pull it. The guy says he pulls it at the joints, and he's like, I just want to know what works. I don't care. I want to see what works, do those things, and then study the outcomes and check in with people like a year later, be like, is this still working for you? So I kind of like that, man, because like in that book, he says, he's like, dude, he's like, it's cool if you can go, if you can go afford a 7-day silence retreat, cool. Your life's probably pretty easy if you can just take off a week and just sit there quietly. But, for like a dude who drives a truck, he's just not going to do that. So it's like, how can you boil these things down so they're truly universal and, and then actually test them rather than just like, join my weird cult and then I'm going to bang your wife, which happens a lot in these kind of circles.
Oh yeah. Cults can get pretty hairy pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see, number one, just want to throw it out there to the guys. If anybody has anything they want to bring up and hop on the show, let us know. We'll pick our favorite topic and bring you guys up. But then, I was watching Michael Jordan over the weekend. Like I told you before, I try my best to watch something motivational every single morning. I force myself to do it, even when I don't want to do it. And every single time it changes my perspective, at least one degree, 2 degrees, etc. And what I was learning I was watching some Michael Jordan interviews, and it was very interesting to me how he almost practiced the same thing. Like when he was on the court, he was a monster, like just wanted to kill people. But in his interviews, he maintained composure and was just very, very calm. And I really liked that idea of being able to calibrate your emotional response and your hormonal response to fit the context, if that makes sense. Like there are certain athletes and certain fighters that can't control, right? They're kind of a maniac out of the arena, and they're a maniac in the arena. And that can have a certain appeal, especially because it's, it can be entertaining. But I think from a practical level and a performance level, it's better to have that contextual understanding that I'm a monster here. And that's honestly what I think a gentleman should be. How they say like a gentleman is strength constrained. Like just because you've got muscle and you've got this aggression about you does not mean you should be applying level 10 aggression to your 2-year-old child.
Yeah.
But if a circumstance arises, even in your career or whatever, then that's when you turn it fully on. It's context dependent.
Absolutely, man. And there's something I struggle with of like the opposite of that. It's like someone's like, can you do this? In my head, I'm like, absolutely not. And I'm like, yep. And just that, you talk about it, just having a little bit of aggression, like, no. The person's like, why not? And you're like, I just can't do that. That's like something that can, so because that does, people always, oh man, I'm just not with that stuff. It's like, that's fine. But I've definitely suffered from the lack of it. And like, I'll like spaz on a guy in my car and be like, I want to fight you. And someone's like, can you do this thing? And I'm like, oh, I can't disappoint them. I'm like, yes. And in my head, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Why did I say that? So yeah, I do think, I think being able to calibrate that is a humongous thing to be able to do.
So we got some options here. I think either ASB or Deadeye Davy. If you're, I actually want to see Deadeye Davy. I wanted to get an update on him. I'm not sure if he's still on, but Deadeye Davy, for context, is the guy who came on a handful of weeks ago. I think he had a heart attack 2 days prior to our conversations. I just wanted to check in with him, see if he's keeping up on his nutrition. But if we don't have him still available, we can grab ASB or whoever else you want on the show, Matt.
Yeah, I'll grab ASB. And there's also a thing. Someone said there, where the hell did I see it? Someone said something about battling seasonal depression. I'd be curious to talk about that too.
Yeah.
Let's grab ASB real quick, just because I think he has to go in like 2 minutes or so. Chuck him on, and then we'll call our shots for Monday.
Heck yeah, man.
I love doing that.
Game time.
There he is.
Oh, hey, what's up?
What's up, bro?
ASB, what's going on, brother?
Well, I sent you a long email about accountability and stuff. I was wondering if you received that.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I haven't. Which email did you send to, bud?
Well, Wes@Rhomas.com bounces. So did you deactivate that?
I don't know. I'll have to see. I've been having a lot of trouble. I need to get like all the admin stuff up. That's actually on my list this week.
Anyway, it's all right. It's just admin stuff. But what do you guys want to talk about?
I don't know. I'm going to send you my email in the group chat, bud.
I found your site and
all right, cool.
Well, so would you mind summarizing the contents of that or the gist?
Yeah, sure. Give me 1 second here. I don't know. Hold on, it's loading. But basically, I was thinking about how, I was listening to an old podcast, a Rhomas podcast, and you're saying about how you have like different identities that you are like tracking goals for, and then it was the one where you were like, oh, I was like 10 out of 10 when it comes to money and career, but just garbage when it came to every other category. That's something that I first heard about this through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People book. But I was thinking that maybe another way you could try to frame it would be like, what did you do this week to like improve at each of these categories? Because now it's not just like a diagnostic of like, where am I at right now, but like, oh, what am I doing to get closer to my goal?
Yep. So, and then for the sorry, there's something going off right now. So I will show you, let me know if this is relevant at all. One thing I try to do, let me jot it down here on paper real quick, is kind of similar to Matt's bell that he has on. So something I'll do real quick, just as a consistent check-in. I draw something on the paper that kind of looks like this, and then I put on the categories. And I've seen other tools that are similar. But let's just say, money is one of the slices of the pie, and then fitness is another slice of the pie, and this is 0%, and the outer edges is 100%. If that makes sense. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah,
so, yeah, I will go through, like, if I'm a little wonky in my brain, like I'm a little down on myself or whatever you want to call it, I will go and I'll do a quick litmus test, and that's like a very quick scorecard. So my scorecard every week is numbers based. And there's something moving around the microphone. But my scorecard is numbers based on a scale of 0 to 10. But if I'm noticing that my psychology is a little off, I will go and do this little quick pie chart to see, it's like, well, how am I feeling subjectively about my performance this week in this particular category or in all the categories? And that, dude, 9 times out of 10, that helps me recalibrate my mentality towards what reality actually is. And I can accept it. If I'm doing a level, if I'm at 5% for family, then that's okay. Now I'm present to that. And then I go and I try to make a quick phone call to a family member or something. Is that hitting on something of what you're referring to?
Yeah, I think that's more diagnostic. I was leaning more towards like, how can I make this more actionable? So I tried 2 different things this week in my little journal. One, instead of playing around with identities like husband, lover, worker, father, etc., I did different categories like mind, body, emotional, like social, and then money as well. And then like if you want to get really like granular into it, you could also separate into inputs and outputs. So inputs for like my mind category, I just wrote like The Untethered Soul, like 2 books that I'm reading, some comedy podcasts as well. For body, I put in like the inputs. I was like, all right, well, here's what I'm literally putting into my body. And then for the output, I'm like, well, here's what I'm doing to work out. So I think the advantage of going that granular is now you can identify things that you're doing that's like also negative. So it's easier to identify places where like, oh, I can remove these negatives. Like this is where I have, like I can make a decision. Like, how much do I really want to spend listening to comedy podcasts throughout the week? So that was pretty helpful for me. And then I was just going to talk about some wins that I had, but I don't want to be too self-serving. But it was a good week.
Talk some wins out there. Get the fuck out of here.
So I think T-Bag, Troy, he contacted me. He spoke about wanting to do a PhD overseas last week. Yep. Right, in genetics. I got him in contact with my friend who finished his PhD in genetics 3 years ago, and they had a great conversation. So I felt really good about that, being able to network there. I bought like 3 of these like Oxford cloth button-down shirts for like $10 each for the Prime Day. And it's like that sounds like dumb, but it's like I've never been fashionable my whole life. So like, but wearing this, I feel like, wow, like this has really made me feel a lot more confident in the way I carry and present myself. Did the same thing with a couple of thermals. And then also like when you're wearing, Wes, I'm sure you know, but when you're wearing like the same thing, you don't have to make a decision like on something stupid like that. So I'm sure you have like 10 of those high quality.
I've got 17.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I did that. Like if you guys are like poor, Uniqlo is a great fucking way to get started on that. I would highly suggest that. Yeah.
I still primarily wear. My wardrobe is like 7 different colors of Uniqlo t-shirts because they're like the most comfortable, cheapest t-shirts you can get, and then I have 3 pairs of jeans. That's all I do.
Target, and because Ray made a comment earlier, he said he's going to pull everybody's money together so that Wes can buy some more shirts. That was hilarious. But dude, so yeah, like normally, business shirt, kind of like ASB right now, and ASB. If you ever want to nerd out on some like talking about different cotton fibers and so on of like some really I do
that a lot. I went through my merino wool phase. I've done all that shit. Broken twill.
We could get into it, but for this, like Target, what is it called? Pair of Thieves brand 4-way stretch. It's like, I don't know, $14 per shirt. So anyway,
yeah, Uniqlo if you're poor, Target, Massimo if you're super poor and need something. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, Wes, but I don't have time really. But listening to like, and I understand where you're coming from because you came from grew up very poverty and all that, and the caddy example from when you're older. So I understand that you have like this. I mean, it sounds like judgmental, but like, money is like at a thing. Money is big on your mind. Now, like I kind of grew up in a similar environment, but not quite as severe. And I certainly don't make as much money as you, but still I feel constantly in the last few years, like I'm checking myself, like I'm being too frugal. I'm spending too much time and effort to save a couple bucks here and there on some shit that just doesn't matter. And I'm only making like 60K and I live in New York City. I know you're making like a ton of money. You're a fucking fund manager. So like, that's something that I did want to question you about and say like, is it really worth your mental effort to be like spending, like obsessing over money that much? And like, I really don't think so. Cause I already feel like I do it. I over obsess with money.
Yeah.
And it's led to some negative consequences with my relationships, and just like the way I'm spending my time is not optimal.
Yeah. Matt, do you mind if I respond?
Please. That's your, yeah.
ASB number 1, you are 1,000% right. Right. So like after you reach above the level of whatever, fundamental needs you have, it's incremental decreasing value to you for sure. But here's the glitch that I have in my head. I am competitive to the point where it harms me. And it is for, and I'm not saying that because competitive gene is kind of one of those things where you can say it and you kind of pound your chest, even though you're knocking yourself at the same time. I can tell you I'm not doing that. I can tell you that for sure my competitive nature runs my life by default. So I have to proactively try to tame it. And I'm not very good at it. So the reason that I have to do stuff like this, like literally I started doing this one day because when I was working on Wall Street, I called my cousin who was like my sister growing up, and I was talking to her, and she basically told me that her boyfriend was physically abusing her, and I didn't find out about it till 6 months later. That's what made me wake up and saying, holy shit, like the reason that I'm doing this work effort and trying to make money is for my family, but it's at the expense of my family short term. So that doesn't make sense. Like, just logically, it doesn't make any sense. But I can tell you that when I wake up out of bed every morning, like literally yesterday, I was like, I just want fucking blood. Like, and I'm not kidding. That was the thought in my head. Like, I want blood right now. And it is a perpetual thought that I have. And I think it is because of my upbringing, but I
clearly you have trauma over that. I mean, that's how poor you grew up. And I understand that. And it's like if you're making like enough where you can max out your IRA, you're fine. Like, you're totally fine. But like, I know I can see this mentality with you, and I share it too. I'm like, I think about money the way someone who is making like $30,000 a year should be thinking about money, when really, like, it doesn't fucking matter. I know, like, I'm frugal enough where it's just never going to be an issue. And it's like, it's something we need to think about, because time is our most precious resource of all. And we need to think about that a lot more than money.
Oh, dude, without a doubt. And I'm so happy you brought it up, because absolutely. And that's why things like that wheel, it's like forcing my brain, I think everybody else should do, to force your brain in whatever methodology works for you to make sure you're producing value holistically. Because if you're not, your life will be eventually reach some sort of disaster. And that's what was happening to me. And I have to fight against that every single day. And
I gotta go. I gotta jump on a sales call.
All right, bro. Yeah, dude. I mean, I love ASB for that too. I feel like he always kind of like, pushes in nice things to a conversation, and even just like question you on that, I think is good, because it's like, it is helpful to constantly do that. And it's like, I come from an almost like opposite side of the coin, where it's like, I have the opposite problem to the point where, like, I just like to do stuff, and then like money for me, I have to go like, oh shit, I have to now make money too. It's like, for me, it's like a side, it's like a side worry, because my dad always made decent money. Like, we were cool. There wasn't like, we never felt really they grew up kind of without money. So I have like some of that that got like hammered into my head of like, I'll just be cheap about weird stuff. But it's not like, for me, it's like, I just like,
You always used to tell me in college how pissed you used to be that your mom used to buy cheap toilet paper.
Yeah, she's like, because she was like, you can't use the soft stuff, because then if you use the hard stuff, it'll scratch your ass. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what happened to you? But yeah, so it's like, it's like, I had, and again, I saw this comment way up when you were describing the little the pinwheel thing you make, and I saw this one guy, and I'm not like, I don't think it's a bad thing. The person's like, isn't that a bit too robotic? And it's like, coming from a perspective where I was kind of just freewheeling, kicking around, like doing my thing. It's like, when I was younger, I for sure would be like, yeah, that seems way too robotic. But then as you start to get older, if you're just kind of freewheeling, kicking around, being like, I'm just going to, like, you're 23, like, I'm just going to enjoy the day. It's like, that's cool, man. You can, but wait, try to enjoy the day once you're 34 and you've enjoyed all the days and fucked off for 10 years. Shit starts to like, you're like, holy shit, you become starved for some like form, some kind of structure to kind of implement in your life. And it's like, so there is, it's a yin yang thing, man. There is a balance. There's like, because I can get the same way some people can get, getting like kind of obsessed on money is kind of culturally judged in a certain way, where it's like, I can get just as obsessed with like creating something that's awesome. It's the same obsession. It's just my vision's here, maybe someone's vision's there. So it's easy to be like, oh, you're obsessed. I've done the same exact thing where I've, made my life unidimensional in a way that just like, blocks out all the other people, the human relationships, where I become just as obsessed. So it's like, I've suffered from that same thing. It just kind of came out in like a different flavor, a different form,
Yeah. I mean, the optics it's a little easier to see optically, the obsession with money or the obsession with work, but other things are more discreet. Definitely. But to the robotic question, which was a great question, with somebody in the comments that said, hey, isn't that too robotic when I do like a scorecard on myself, which I eventually will have for you guys done and ready. I think everybody, especially a man, we need things to say, just, hey, how are you doing? As objectively as you can, how do you think you're doing? And that's a fair question. I have met very few men who are just floating, through life by the winds of chance and are long-term happy, if that makes sense. Like, there's usually some sort of balls dropping, and it's usually because we're not paying attention to them. So all I'm saying is, at least for me, and I think that you guys should consider doing it as well, is, hey, what are the core areas of my life? And they're going to be basically all of ours are going to be very, very much the same, if not exactly the same, right? How's your family life doing? How's your friends? How's your career doing? How's your health and fitness? So these are things that are very objective, that if you do not take care of them in your life, at least the majority of them, your life eventually will hit some sort of car accident, right? Like that's what is going to happen. This happens time and time again. And for the person who's just kind of floating, if it hasn't happened to you yet, it will. And the worst thing that can happen is when that car accident happens in your life, that you don't recognize that it was a function, right? It was a function of all of your selective ignorance leading up until that point. If that made that with the whole Jordan Peterson thing of talking about willful blindness, like, yeah, like I've been the dude before that says like, oh, I'm just going to let the car light, that engine light's just not, it doesn't mean anything, right? It's been on for a while. It doesn't mean anything. And then all of a sudden, right, your car fucking doesn't work. It's like, well, you had the thing on your dashboard that was blinking saying, hey, wake up, dummy, right? Because otherwise your car's not going to work. So my suggestion, at least for me, that the philosophy that I use in my life is having that for your life. Okay, but there's no dashboard that is naturally given to you. So what we're saying, or at least what I'm saying, is make yourself a fucking dashboard, right? Like look at your scorecard. Like if you're not investing into the emotional bank account of your family, guess what? Your family relationship is not going to be that great. So like one thing for me that I have on my scorecard is to reach out to one family member a day. So I call one family member every single day, and I'm successful at it, let's say 95% of the time, because it's built into my habits. And dude, I can tell you that when I moved out to California, my family relationships got so much better, because that's when I finally woke up and forced myself to say, I'm going to proactively try to produce value in this area. And as simple as just calling up one family member a day. My grandmom and I have so much of a better relationship now because I talk to her a couple times a week. My aunt and I have, my mom and I, my cousins and I, just for that one thing. And that comes as, yes, it might seem robotic, right? But I argue that, hey, do the 5-minute robot thing of just scoring yourself on a simple piece of paper or on a scorecard, and it will make you present enough to take the action that is necessary that otherwise would have been invisible to you if you did not have that dashboard.
Well, dude, yeah, I mean, I think that all makes perfect sense. And it's also like, being someone who would have said that in my younger years, and I don't know if the person's young or not, I'm guessing they might be. I would have said that too. And, that's when we start to kind of merge too hard with our evaluations. Like, there's a lot of times where there's something we might not be right about. So there's two, I can break it down two ways. There's the first, kind of the easiest way to explain it is like, okay, if that seems drastic in a way that kind of rubs you, then, what would you do? What would your version of it be? Because one of my mental models is I try not to critique stuff unless I have like a different version of it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So there's that aspect of like, well, what would it, because you do need form in your life, like you just do, I've lived an absolutely formless existence for like the guts of a decade, and it just starts to fucking collapse in on itself. It just does. If you're not doing this like standard maintenance stuff, I can just tell you that from like experience, it just does. The other thing too is like the reason I would have said that is like I didn't want to fucking look at how I was doing. I didn't want to think about it. It's like, cause it was too much to just like, take head on or just like peel that veneer down and be like, how am I doing here? And start objectively scoring myself. So then it's like, you kind of throw again, I'm more talking to the younger version of myself than anything, but it's like, you then like obstruct this big kind of elaborate smoke screen of like, yeah, that's this, and I'm evaluating it this way. Like, forget the content of your evaluation. Think about the why behind your evaluation. Again, this is just like a thing to think about. It's not saying like you're wrong, I'm right. I don't know. I've gotten out of as much as I can. I still am in it, very heavily invested in being right in terms of like arguing with my wife. I'm trying to get out of that. But it's like, it's like you try to forget about being right and just think like, forget about my evaluation, whether it's correct. It's like, where is this coming from, and why is that my evaluation? And what if I just ignored my evaluation and did this anyway, and then had some sort of experience? And if I experience it and say, no, I genuinely don't like it, here's why, that's totally fine. But when we start to get kind of imprisoned behind our evaluations without thinking about like why we're evaluating things. And typically we evaluate things in a way that's self-protective. So it's like, it's just something to think about.
Without a doubt. And there's a lot of great comments on the side about this. And to Jim's point, yes, absolutely. It's a way of documenting your success. But Matt, to your point, of course, you have to view it in a healthy way. Like one of the practices that you and I, Matt, both do is step on the scale every single morning, right? Step on that scale every single morning and be accountable and at least acknowledge the number that shows up on that scale. Now, funny enough, and I'm not, there's a reason that this podcast is for men only. Like men and women process, in my opinion, like it's on a bell curve, yes, but the distributions are very different. I have told women to do this, and at least my experience, every single woman that I've told to jump on the scale every single morning gives me feedback that they cannot do it, that it is too psychologically damaging for them. And hey, fair enough, I respect it. But I can tell you that every single man that I've told to do this has said, with the exception of one man, he said, like, this is one of the best practices that I've ever had. It makes me more present to my prior behavior. So with the disclaimer that give yourself a scorecard, and as long as you are viewing it in a healthy way, right? If it's not too overwhelming for you, then it's a phenomenal thing. If it is too overwhelming for you, then I would say, okay, you can talk about different variations of it, or maybe taking down your judgment on yourself. It is not necessarily to judge yourself. It is to acknowledge your prior behavior and whether or not your actions are congruent with your goals. Yep. And that sort of objective, as much as you can be objective. And here, the other thing is, I do it objectively for myself. So I give myself a score. And so, okay, how do I personally feel on a scale of 0% to 100% that I'm doing, or a scale of 0 to 10, how am I doing in these areas? And also, would the key stakeholders in this area, what score would they give me? So for instance, let's just say it's for my family. Let's say specifically for my relationship with my mom. How am I doing right now on a scale of 0 to 10 with value to my mom? I might think it's a 10, but I might be delusional. So then I try to think, okay, well, what would my mom say? And that's a very interesting question to ask yourself. I actually just asked this question a couple of days ago to somebody. And I said, hey, you're telling me a story right now about a coworker who you are competing with, right? And you're kind of trashing him a little bit. I said, well, what do you think he would say about you? And that is different than saying, what do you think he thinks about you? It's like, no, what would he say about you? If he were sitting here right now, what would he say? And it just forces a little bit more objectivity, right? So like in my head, it's like, okay, what would the key stakeholders in this area be? What would my mom say is the score about me and my value to her? Or what would my bodybuilding coach, what would he say my level of performance has been around my fitness goals? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I like the idea of, when you're sitting there, you catch someone, or if you're doing that yourself, if you're just sitting here trashing someone, oh, this fucking blah, 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 this person, this, that, to stop. Because it really, in my head, when you said that, it kind of makes people, because sometimes we can sit and trash people. It feels awesome because we're not thinking about ourselves and we're like, this person's that, whatever. But it almost forces you into a position of accountability. It's like, okay, yeah, that person sucks, whatever. What do they think about you? And you're like, well, I didn't want to think about myself. I want to just trash this person, and it's like, right. Yeah, dude, 100%. And I also, before we get in, I do want to also jump into the seasonal depression thing, but this is a thing I came across in a book that I really liked. It was the idea of like, it's like, it goes into like this long, it's the denial of death. I'm still listening to it. I love it. I think I'm going to literally restart it and just do it again because I liked it so much. But they talk about how people need some, they say in general, we need like some sort of illusion, we're powered by illusions for the most part, because, if you really boil it down, we're like alone in this chaotic universe, blah, 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 blah. It gets like really deep and into everything. But from there, they talk about how we use what the things that have served people as ideals and setting like a high ideal. And they say, talk about like religion, this, that, and this, whatever. But they say like, the question that I want to get to is, in the book, they ask, how does a lack of ideals affect everybody around you? So if you don't have a high bar for yourself, it's like, okay, yeah, you don't want to examine yourself. That's too extreme. That's this and that. How's that affecting everybody around you? And to think about that, and that for me was like, oh man, that's an interesting question. And it's also something we don't really do. We don't really have ideals anymore. Everything's kind of sunk into this like relativism where it's like, well, what works for you doesn't work for me. And I think that's important. That's part of it, but it's also like, setting this like super high ideal for yourself, like going through what I've started to try to do is like, I'm reading these books. I'm reading like The Liberated Mind with Stephen Hayes. And it's something I might start constructing because I'm still working on the thing to like help people concretely and in a way that's like real to them, boil down their values. And I've just been doing it with authors. That's what's been working for me. Like a lot of times I feel like you use a lot of sports people. That's something that works for you. And it's like, I'm going to start doing like a separate little board of just like authors, people, thinkers from all, and just like, people from whatever that I just kind of admire and have looking at that. So I'm trying to, like you're saying, like, how does my bodybuilding coach feel about that? How does that? And I feel like, setting ideals through like, other people, whether it's religion works for you, whatever, setting some high thing that you have to like, that you have kind of over your head, you obviously you might not attain it, but that like 2 degrees, like you said before, you come up, with that over you, it helps tremendously. So,
well, I think you're hitting on a phenomenal topic, which some people want to go through life and they just want to blend in. They don't want to be polarizing at all. But when you have ideals, that just by definitions, I mean, you're going to have to make certain choices, and you're going to represent a certain decision-making path. What Jordan Peterson talks about is like, you want to be the guy at the funeral that everybody can lean on, because they already know you as a strong individual. Now, if they know you as a strong individual, you might not be the guy who's being invited out to dinner every time, because they know that you have certain hard opinions. Like you draw lines in the sand around certain areas of life. And that's one of the topics that I think that you're hitting on, is like having ideals. Like, for instance, if I stand for not drinking, right, and everybody knows me, I am less likely to be invited to crowds that drink heavily. That's just a rough example. But I'd rather be known for that, right? That people can count on me for certain things, even if it turns certain people off. And I think having your ideals, it puts your flag in the ground, and it forces a certain identity or people to know you about something. But I think every single time that works out, you might lose a certain amount of friends, right, or a certain amount of peers. But I think way better to go that route, to be the guy that people know that I go to that guy for that thing. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he might not be a partier, but I know that if I need something when it counts, like, I want him on my team. And I think the only way you can have that is if you do have those ideals and values in place. There's no other way. Yeah, if you're just floating through life, good for you if that makes you somewhat happy. But I would say that's probably more of like a numb happy, rather than like actually going through the fights and then having people recognize you for the results that you've attained in your life.
Yeah, man, dude. I mean, what you're hitting on is, we had Wood on our on the main on Matt and Shane Secret podcast, on my main podcast, and he asked about individuation, like, what is that? And you're describing it. That's basically what it is. It's like, what are the things that are inherent to you that you feel some sort of way about it, and then actually bringing them into existence around yourself. And then, when you think about it, it is like a daunting task, because it's like you're chiseling, like, when you're just like, I'm going to do this thing that goes against the grain of popular opinion, or like my social networks, you're chiseling, just like the thing you're chiseling is your fear of being left alone and abandoned, essentially, like being left alone and left for dead, which is like, as a baby, that's like a horrible, horrible fear, like, and rightfully so, because in the wild, so it's like, that's something we battle against every day. And it always, always has its hooks in us, to some degree. So, like Wes, I'm the same way. Like, I don't like to drink that much. I'll have like 1 or 2 here and there. But it's like, when you start to try to set your ideals and draw your lines around yourself, like, because that's like, you see the people, I look at these people, these writers, these this or that, and, whoever else. And it's like the professor, the guy, Ernest Becker, who wrote Denial of Death. I started reading his biography. I was just reading his book, didn't really think about his life that much. Dude, the guy got kicked out of like 5 colleges because he'd be like, I don't support this. And they'd be like, what? He'd be like, I'm out. I don't care. Or they'd fire him because he, so it's like, that must be tough. He would like be right at tenure and be like, I'm sorry, man. I can't go along with this. I don't like it. He got kicked out of like 3. He had to move to Canada to be able to actually teach. And then from Canada, from that position, he wrote a book that won a Pulitzer Prize. So it's like, if he had been like, well, yeah, I guess I don't want to make waves, blah, 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 and we don't have to all go for the Pulitzer Prize, but it's like, just to add a little bit of that to your life, where you're like, no, this is how I feel. This is who I am. And let stuff kind of rearrange around you, rather than you just constantly rearranging around everything in this constant state of flux that, like, at the end of the day, because your insides are telling you like, hey, we don't like this. And you're like, shh, be quiet. We don't want to upset the status quo. Dude, that's how you start talking about that. That rolls me right into seasonal depression, man, or just depression in general. Because a lot of depression is this feeling of guilt, this feeling of this. And a lot of it is, it can be, and, seasonal depression is a little different because there's like, seems to be some sort of biological mechanism. But in my experience, it's like, when I stray from like my own ideals, or like my, let's call them proto ideals, the things that are still forming in me that I'm just like not giving the time of day because it's too uncomfortable. Depression is almost just like, it's like a retreat, man. And on some level, it's just like, you get it, you sink into it. It fucking sucks, but it comes heavily from the thing that I think Wes was talking about, this experiential avoidance. It's like, you've been avoiding stuff that could be painful, scary. And that's when I tend to land in a depressed state. So.
Well, and I also wonder, and this is obviously your category, Matt, so I'm just taking a very much a guess here, but I'm trying to apply a certain amount of analysis and logic to it. I wonder how much of, let's say, depression is a function of hardware versus software. So the actual inputs versus like kind of the thoughts that you're having. And I'm just taking a wild guess, but I'm going to assume that there might be some value in saying, okay, hardware, let's look at hardware. Am I getting enough sleep? Right? Am I getting enough water? Am I getting enough vitamin D, right? Like by going outside and absorbing. And if I'm in a location where I can't get enough vitamin D via sun absorption, then am I taking a supplement? I wonder what the top things would be of like the hardware thing, like just the natural hard inputs versus the chemicals. And so I'm just guessing, but Matt, do you think that has anything to do with it? Like, are all the fundamentals in place first and then working on the thought process second?
So so for me personally, it's like a two-edged kind of sword. It's like, there's times where I don't just get enough sleep. I'm depressed the next day, and I go like, man, but in my head I go, oh, I didn't get enough sleep. I'm like, I'm self-aware enough to know like I need sleep. The problem with depression is it gets to the point where it's like, what's the point of any of this? So like, it's like do X, do this, do this, do that, do that, and then the primary problem is like, I know that I don't want to do it. Like I don't even see the point in doing that. I don't even see the point in trying to correct this. And and it kind of like I think I see this one comment says my depression mainly manifests from physical pain. So again, it's like this is your relationship to your pain. You get I'm not trying to be funny at all. Like I had this big nasty hemorrhoid, dude, and it like bummed. The first time I got it, I was fucked up, dude. I was so bummed out about it. I was like,
I remember that you told me in detail about that. I remember
dude, like it blocked my entire butthole, dude. It was insane. So like this was something that like fucked me up. Like the first time I had it, I was like, this sucks. This is what I have now. This fucking blows. It is all I talk about, Ray. You're correct. And it's like, this fucking sucks. That was the first time I had it. I got it again recently, and it was like, rather than being like, this sucks, why do I have to get it? Is this what I have to deal with now? I just, I was like, I did my goal. I just did my goals despite that. I ran, I did all this running, I was like, hopefully I fucking break this goddamn thing. So it's like, can you, and it's like, it's a kind of a thing. Like, can you accept especially physical pain? Like, all right, it's here. Can you accept it? And they've done studies that if you accept the pain, it actually lessens, not because of like, the nerve signals or anything. It's just, you're not focused enough on it. And you said that too, Wes, like the two darts of like, ouch, my arm, versus the other one of like, why does my arm hurt so bad? This sucks. My arm hurts. That's a different form of pain that amplifies the pre-existing physical pain. So yeah, I mean, like, again, and the other thing too, that's the other thing. And that sucks, dude, Jim. I think that fucking sucks. Like, again, being in physical pain that prevents you from being able to do the stuff you like to do. But again, a lot of depression stems from this kind of tie to the past we have, where it's like, we're constantly reevaluating, being like, this is what I've done before. This is what I used to be able to do. And it's like, it's tough, man, because anxiety is just the future. It's like, I'm worried about the future. People who worry about the past tend to be depressed. People who worry about the future tend to be anxious. So yeah, man, it's like, it's something only you can get through. It's like, I can't judge your pain. I can't feel it. I don't know how bad it physically feels. It's something it's just either you accept how it is and like do what you can. And then, maybe with time it lessens, or, I don't know, but it's one of those things that, like, for me, giving into it is like the worst thing you do. You can always act in spite of feeling a certain way. That's my motto. That's kind of the one I stick to. So when I am depressed, it's like, all right, I'm depressed. I feel like shit. I'm still going to do the stuff I got to do today. Because if I give into the same exact thing of anxiety, if I let this mental state dictate my behaviors, it's only going to get worse. And I know that for sure. So that's where I try to approach that stuff from.
Well, and I want to throw something out here. So I can relate. Jim's one of the comments who's talking about this right now. Number one, I can relate. I obviously don't know to what degree, but I can tell you that I had back problems for years. I still do. Every once in a while, you'll see like do this with my neck. But dude, I can't express how much yoga and the practice of yoga has how much value it's brought to my life. And I mean, literally. And by the way, like, some days I just don't want to do it, but when I actually go into a yoga class, it is such a phenomenal hybrid of mental work and physical work and emotional work. If you get into a good class, and I'm telling you, again, I don't know the level of your pain and exactly what's injured, et cetera, but dude, I can tell you it was a game changer for me. Like, yoga for me is part physical activity and exercise, and then it's also part therapy. Hey, he's saying, I've been telling myself, oh yeah, dude, Jim, please go out there and do a yoga class. Commit to doing it for, if you can, every day or 5 days a week for a full month straight. That has been a game changer, dude. Even to this day, like I was recently having some knee pain, and my automatic thought process in my head was like, oh yeah, I guess it's just, I'm kind of there at that age, and I've been playing basketball for years, and just knee pain, just kind of part of the process. That's was my default way of thinking. And then I started doing yoga more. I started doing it every day instead of just like 2 or 3 days a week. And my fucking knee pain went away, like completely went away. But I was buying into the story of friends telling me, oh, once you reach, 30 years old or 33 years old, you're going to have these aches and pains. It's like, or like I could actually try to do something about it and trust in the process. And then like literally went completely away. And I'm not taking any medications, none of that stuff. But the price to pay is I actually got to go and actually do that every single day. But dude, every single time I walk out of the yoga room, I'm like, wow, that was worth a whole bottle of pharmaceuticals for sure.
Yeah, well, the funny thing too is I used to get really bad upper to middle back pain, and I can say for sure, and this is something I've just paid attention to, when I start gaining too much weight, my back starts to hurt. So there's like a certain threshold I hit that I start getting back pain. When I lose the weight, my back feels better. So it's like, and again, these kind of things have to be so custom tailored. It's hard to kind of just like judge anyone's thing and be like, here, do this. But yeah, I can say that for sure the avoidance of doing stuff that would be somewhat generative and helpful is definitely will only make it worse. That's like something that's been like, verified a bunch of times over. But there's also the thing here too, real quick about, I saw a comment here about, let me see. Oh, about worrying about working out. Let me see this.
Yeah, I hit a collapse lung.
I suffer from having a heart attack because I'm so out of shape when I try to exercise. This is something I dealt with. I didn't have a collapsed lung at all, but I always worried I was going to have a heart attack. And then I didn't exercise, which again just makes the threat of having a heart attack statistically more. So the thing that helped me, just like the real quick thing to cut through all the shit, is like go to a cardiologist. Go to a cardiologist, not just any cardiologist, because I would go to one that I wouldn't trust one. I'm like, I don't know. Go to one that you kind of gel with. Just put it all out there. Like, here's my fucking issue. Here's what I'm dealing with. I did this. And they're like, here. They gave me the full battery of tests. Like, here, dude, we'll show you. Your heart's fine. Gave me the full battery of tests. And once I had that battery of like that okay from a doctor with my explanation of like, because if you just go in there like a normal dude, they're going to hook you up and be like, why are you here? You're so young. Like, what's your problem? Mm-hmm. So when I told the first guy, and he basically was like, oh, just get out. Like, just kind of like push me off. Like, I don't want to deal with this. The second person, like, dude, I walked around with the thing in my pocket because I would get like heart palpitations. I'm like, yeah, but you're not capturing them. So they're like, they gave me a one of those things to wear to capture like your day's event. I forget what it's called, but like, you capture all of your cardiac activity for like 24 hours. And he was like, I want you to go drink coffee. I want you to do the most stressful stuff you think could possibly give you a heart attack. It'll all be recorded on this. And, it's pretty cool. So like saying, so I did all the stuff that I made these rules. Well, but I can't drink coffee. I can't do this. And I can't, if I exercise, I can't do this before that. So I went and just did all that stuff. I broke all my rules, my mental models I, made up to kind of like keep myself from being so afraid. And at one point I captured it was right before I went on, I did stand up that night. It was right before I went on stage, and I had a strong heart palpitation. I was like, yes, I got one of these on the thing. He's going to see, they're going to know. Now they know what I'm dealing with. I brought it in. He's like, oh yeah, that's like your heart just resets every now and again. It's not a big deal. And I was like, oh, he's like, you're totally healthy. Like totally fine. You're like, dude, that's something that happens without consulting an expert. I was left to my own head being like, right, this is a sign. So what I would say is, the collapsed lung is a concern, but it's like, take your concerns to a doctor and just, again, find a doctor you kind of trust, and do just like, and again, the trust is a big thing because like, the thing that calms anxiety is belief. Like if you can have all the information in the world. If you don't believe it or feel that in some sense, it's not going to help at all. Same with depression. If you don't believe everything's ever going to, if you don't actually believe things can actually get better, you will be depressed because it will seem very futile. So that's a big one, man. And we've had belief kind of stripped from us really hard because it's like, whether or not things are true depend on like scientific literature that gets very convoluted and honestly contradicts itself on like a million different levels. So it's really like, can you just believe in anything and then just try to experience that to like validate your kind of beliefs. But yeah, so I would like write to the doctor, lay all your cards out on the table and, just let them direct you. And if you don't feel it, just go to a different doctor. So
awesome. Hell yeah, man. It's cool. And it's cool that you've had a similar experience.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. So awesome. Cool, man.
Years.
So what are the shots called for this week? And guys, this is the part of the show where we call our shots, meaning what goals do you have for the week? So if you guys want to do it in the comments or do it together, and we always recommend having a small group of guys that you can do this with as well.
Yes.
The whole idea here is helping us all make progress. So helping men make progress. That's the whole mission. So Matt, what is it for you, brother?
All right. So, I also too want to emphasize, I saw that somebody, you hear my bell?
Nice.
All this went off. So the thing I wanted to emphasize was last week someone said they formed their own little 4-person trio within their company. That's awesome. I think as many people should do that as possible, man. This is cool.
Clee, right?
I believe so. I forget, but if
Clee, what is up, brother?
Yeah. So it's dude, if you can do this, if you can get your own little 3-4 person pack, dude, I'm telling you, it's amazing. It's a good supplement. It's a little more direct. It's a little more, custom tailored to, I guess, you and whoever you're with. It's the best thing you can do. So with that being said, I'm going to do psychnol research. I have the book right here. This is the book I'm getting through. I'm going to try to get to page 304. I just picked a nice little, I feel like I can manage this much book. So I'm going to specify, because I keep saying psychnol research and I do a little bit and I don't do a lot. So I need to specify page 304 is where I want to be. Whatchamacallit? I wanted the next thing that depends on my psychnol research is the thing I've been talking about, developing a value, like how to get your values, values that mean something to you, and then translate them into habits. So I'm still working on a little model for that, but that depends on me reading that book. So that's kind of a motivator. I want to try to do 3 chapters of my new book. 4 workouts. I've been adding self-care goals in here, which is kind of nice. I want to take 1 hot bath. I try to take a hot bath reading of my choice, which is a really nice thing to do. I'm going to visit family. I'm going to visit my parents on Tuesday, and I'm going to try to make my nephew's birthday on Sunday because I'm flying in from Texas. So I'm going to do my best to arrange my flight so I can make that. And also I'm going to try to do a little surprise date on Wednesday. I've been neglecting the wife. I'm sorry. Oh. So I'm going to, and she hasn't really said that, but she hasn't said that at all, but it's been a very long, I'm like, when's the last time it's the only thing we talk about is basically me being like, I got to do this. 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 I got to, and what are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? So I'm going to surprise her with a little change of pace. It's nice to throw it in there every now and again.
Nice, man. I love it.
That's the other thing too. I just want to say this real quick. It's dude, once you start doing this for yourself, and again, you can say, oh, this sounds this way. I've custom, me and Wes's approaches are slightly different, but it's I would never be doing this if I didn't have the form from him. I'm not saying different, one way is better than the other, but it's I've been able to take the thing that he does and custom tailor it for myself. And he was actually the one to remind me, you got to add stuff in there, just other stuff, life stuff. Dude, I neglected that probably worse than anyone I know, neglected relationships and life stuff. And, I just want to emphasize that because a lot of times people think when you're more so focused on money, that's kind of synonymous. It's dude, I was focused on writing and I totally neglected all my relationships, man. It's so that's something I try to remain aware of, but it's dude, having this form allowed me to actually articulate and express my life in a way that serves me and other people around me. Without that form, again, people, that's so robotic. It's dude, okay, cool. But dude, I'm telling you, and again, I'm not coming down to you because that was how I thought when I was younger. It's Jesus Christ, if I could somehow just put you in my brain 9 years ago versus now and let you feel what I'm experiencing, it's which sounds kind of revivalist, I want to trap you under my tent, but it is I'm telling you, man, I can't thank you enough, Wes, for helping me do that. And it's once you start plugging in not only just your objective goals of doing stuff, but what is a cool thing I could do for just people in my family? Well, and it's just a little reminder, dude. That's all it is. So don't get too hung up on the appearance of it or this or that. It doesn't matter. So sorry.
Hell yeah. Well, number one, awesome. Looking forward to hearing your results at the end of the week. And then number 2, all the guys who just post their goals. That's fucking awesome. And Ray, thank you for leading the charge on that. I think Ray said he's going to try to invite 500 people to his next show. That's amazing. And then Jim, I think I saw in there, he's going to try yoga. Jim, that would be awesome. Please report back to us on that. If you're going to try yoga this week, try one. And if you're looking for, if it's a little easier for you, you can go on YouTube and type in yoga with Adrian. What I do, if I can't make it to the yoga studio, is I do yoga with Adrian deep stretch. That is the one particular thing that I will do probably a couple times a week. So check that out on YouTube. Yoga with Adrian Deep Stretch. So it's phenomenal. Okay, for me, I'm going to actually change it up this week. You're welcome, Jim. I'm going to change it up this week, and I'm only going to give 2, and that is to force a deeper level or higher level of accountability, because I want to get done. The first thing is the finance video that I was telling you guys about. So I want to get that done, shipped out of my hands. And then the second thing is I want to get the scorecard done. Those are the only 2 things I'm going to announce to everybody, because I want you, Matt, to be able to say, dude, you only had 2 things. Why are those 2 things not done? I'm obviously doing a whole bunch of other stuff throughout the week,
Sure.
but those are the ones that I want to make sure are complete and shipped.
Definitely. Dude, that's something I think about too, man. It's like I at first when I started doing this, I was listing like 20 things. Now it's like I just list the things that like I know like I actually need to get done and want to, and I try to, again, like, you know, I don't try not to whip yourself so hard. So I can kind of appreciate that. Sorry, when I was writing something back to Ali real quick. I just wanted to emphasize him. So
well, and it forces you to select things that are going to move the needle, right? You're going to do 150 things throughout the week, but it's like, what are those? They call them the lead dominoes. What's the lead domino that's going to knock all of the other dominoes down? Right. And that's what I want to focus on, because what happens is once we get good at our careers, or once we get good at, you know, whatever, we're relatively maintaining homeostasis in our lives, that is not going to get you to the next level. It's those things that move the needle that are going to get you to the next level. So for me, these are the next 2 things I want to make sure that I actually get done this week. That is what I want to be held accountable to.
Hell yeah, dude. And also too, I should say, we're going to check in Thursday just because I have to fly Friday.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we will be having the show on Thursday this week instead of Friday, because Matt's getting out there and crushing it.
Yeah. So I appreciate being flexible, Wes. That's and hopefully I won't be flying for anywhere anytime soon. So
awesome. Yeah. So guys, Thursday instead of Friday this week. And then I'm also going to be putting up the men's weight loss stuff up on YouTube. It is now up on the podcast, but I need to be putting it up on YouTube as well. So that is coming also this week.
Hell yeah. All right, cool. Dude. Thanks,
all right, dude.
As always. Appreciate you.
You guys too. Later, buddy.
Later.